I'm Jason Pablo. You're listening to Living Proof. What are some of your weaknesses? For me, it's definitely food. I mean, food is something we all need, but for me, it can be dangerous just because of all of my health reasons, especially with me being on dialysis. Too much food and especially too much liquid, even water, can be dangerous. And while that's something I can handle with a little bit of focus, others struggle with a weakness so uncontrollable it can lead them to a path of destruction. Sean Campbell's weakness was substance abuse, and he was in and out of rehab until he found the one thing that completely stopped his cravings and empowered him to live a new life. Sean Campbell is on with us from Calgary. Hey,
Hey,
Sean, how
Jason.
are you?
Fantastic yourself.
Hey, thanks for joining us today.
No problem.
Now, Sean, alcoholism was something you'd struggled with for a long time, right?
Absolutely. Probably since as early as age 12.
How did it get out of control?
As I got into my adult life, I had problems in relationship, and when relationship failed, I started drinking. It's one of those illnesses that sneaks up so fast. Like it was the bartender who kind of first gave me the warning, because the whole time I'm drinking, I didn't even think for 1 second that it was abnormal, like what was going on with me, right? And that's how much it consumes you. And
And with all with alcoholism, like you mentioned, it is a sickness. How did it affect your life?
so, well, I mean, basically, you have years of me going into treatment centers, about 4 years straight, in and out, 30-day treatment, living out. My work supported me. They were there for me. They didn't have to ask me if I needed help. I'm the one who went to them every time it kind of happened. And
So you actually checked yourself into a facility.
yeah, absolutely. I called the first time. I called my human resource department and said, like, I need help. So I tried to work on that and really try not to drink. But every time I'd get involved in like a relationship, it was really unhealthy, and then I'd start to drink, and I'd destroy the relationship. I'd start to have issues at work, and I'd once again call in and say, like, I need help again, and
Right.
very frustrating cycle through the whole process, right? So,
Yeah. You struggled with it, but where did it all start to change for you?
well, for me, I grew up in an atheist family, so I didn't have any real connection to God. And of course, I believed that if there is a God, he must truly, truly not love me, right? Why would he do this to me, right? I'd given up. I'd given up on life. I just couldn't figure out how to fix this. And I tried to terminate that. I woke up in the hospital wondering, like, how I was alive still, or why I was still alive, and
Right.
it made me want to search out more for the answer. What is God's plan for me? Because I had no purpose. I was struggling. I just, defeated. And I actually had a roommate, and he had a faith of his own, and he said, have you ever considered like searching out God in religion? And I'm like, well, I don't know anything about religions, right? And so he took me around to so many different places. I prayed with Buddhist monks. I went to Catholic churches and non-denominational churches and just everything, right? But I didn't hear any message. I didn't understand some of the ways that they would preach or stuff like that. It just didn't make sense to me. I'm a pretty logical
Sounds like
guy,
nothing
so
was really speaking to you.
yeah, nothing was speaking to me. God had a different plan for me, I feel now, and I used to think this is coincidence, but I'm in a coffee shop, and I see this girl standing in front of me, and she smiles, and she asked me if I had ever heard of the Church of Christ, and
Right.
I said, no, I don't think so. I said, but I've gone to quite a few churches over the last 3 months. So she said, well, why don't you come up and talk to the minister the next worship service? And I said, yeah, sure. I got the address, and went up to meet the minister. younger minister, but really knowledgeable. And I went in and kind of pre-warned him that like I've already kind of done different Bible studies or tried to, and I said, I'll start taking your doctrine lessons, but the second I hear something that just isn't gonna make sense to me, I'm gonna quit, right? And he said,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
no problem. He said, I want you to ask as many questions as you want, and that was different for me because other places were telling me like, well, it's a bit of a mystery, the Bible, and I'm like, well, I don't know anything about it, so
It's all a mystery, right?
it's all a mystery, right? And I'm like, I'm a technical like person by trade, so I'm like, I need a manual on this stuff, right?
Right.
And so he did the first doctrine lesson,
Hmm.
and I remember because he was reading from the Bible, so I was like, okay, well, he's not making this up, like he's just reading it to me in front of me, right?
Hmm.
And I got to the end. I asked all this sin that I have in my life. You know, I was like, I don't know if I'm forgivable and stuff. And the minister did tell me. He said, Sean, like you are just starting to take the lessons from the Bible. So there are some forgivable things you've done because you didn't know, you hadn't ever been preached the gospel. And
Right.
that gave me comfort. And just every Bible lesson gave me more clarity, gave me more understanding, and teaching me how to pray. So I definitely started really believing, and I'm praying. Now, you got to understand, at this time still, I'm still having like some cravings and still like knowing full well what that destruction brings me, but it's really a mental state that's hard to get out of. And I would pray, I would desperately pray. And
So, Sean, tell me, when did the addiction or the cravings stop?
the day I was baptized is when the cravings stopped for me.
Wow.
Part of the baptism lesson when you're about to be baptized is they talk about repenting, truly repenting, and before your baptism, this is the time, to ask for forgiveness for all of your sins. And so that's what I did, and it was almost immediate that all of the cravings and all of the concern for my drinking was gone.
So, Sean, so how long have you been sober
I've
now?
been sober for over 1 year now.
What's life like now?
Now it's like my time to give back. So
Mm.
I'm very actively involved with the church, but I feel like I have kind of a twofold experience now. I go back to the treatment center that I once stayed at almost every single day for a couple hours a day, and I talk with other guys that are struggling, and they often will ask me like, how did you do it? Because every alcoholic knows this is a really hard disease to just stop drinking and never think about it again.
Right.
And I'm there. I explained to them like I found God. I said, that empty hole you're trying to fill with drugs and alcohol, that's God. That's the hole. That's what's missing. I don't crave alcohol. I don't even subconsciously think about it. It's just a total renewal of life. Like my job's going good. I live on my own. I could never live on my own before because that would lead me right to drinking.
It's funny. You almost have to thank your sickness for finding
Yeah.
God. I mean, am I wrong in saying
No,
that?
it's funny you say that. That's exactly what I've said before to other people is if I look at my life and I look at my struggles, how else would someone like me, with my upbringing, let's say, have ever found the true Church of Christ? I don't believe my faith will waver. They talk about trials in the church, but I had some really hard trials previous to knowing that there is someone or something looking out for me for the rest of my life here on this earth.
Wow. And to think all of this started from, your unfortunate past, but at the same time, I mean, I too am one who does not believe in coincidences. God has a plan laid out for all of us. Sean, your story proves through our faith and prayer, God can help us overcome all kinds of weaknesses. I really want to thank you for sharing your story with us on Living Proof.
I really enjoy being on the program. Thank you so much for having me on. I hope my message can not only help other people in the church to strengthen their faith, but really I'm hoping that it helps that person who's struggling with alcoholism.
Thanks again, Sean, for joining us.